Hello, everybody, and welcome to another race in the Go Mode Podcast's 2020 Mentor Tournament. Today we have McMonkey, mentored by Qirn, versus Krithel, mentored by noblytheforeign. I almost skipped a word there. And the mode is Ambrosia, which is a standard start, meaning they will play the beginning of the game from waking up in Link's bed to saving Zelda to escaping through the sanctuary, as well as an assured sword. And the uncle will give us a boots hint at the beginning. The last notable difference in Ambrosia is that bosses will always have non-dungeon items, so they will always have drops, or items that are not a map, compass, or key. So that can change a lot about the routing. I'm vortexofdoom. With me is Ezmar, and we'll be your commentary crew for the day.
Yes, and I also like how Krithel has drawn a reference to the fact that this is a team effort by listing Nobly in his file name. But here, yeah, it sounds like boots are in Hyrule Castle, so that sounds very interesting because that means that we're going to be getting boots early on, almost certainly.
Hopefully, there is a world in which none of the drops are bombs and none of the prize packs have bombs, and they are forced to. And if the boots are in that back of escape check, they'll be forced to come back for it later.
Yeah, but that's definitely a better hint to see than Light World or something similar to that, because that...
Or Turtle Rock, because it'll be a while.
Yeah, but at least it...
Uncle just given us 20 rupees today.
It's dangerous.
Fire Rod.
Yeah, I would be happy to see Fire Rod here if this weren't Ambrosia. Fire Rod is a nice early weapon to have. It also fills up your magic.
Interesting. I'm not sure how McMonkey got that full magic.
I know there are two small magic drops in those pots.
So early on in an Ambrosia or any standard race, there's nothing really... Oh, the guards are in the magic
yeah, the guards have
drop pack. I missed that, which means that the guards and snakes will not be giving us any bombs today.
Could still be on the
Yep.
Which there are a lot of in the escape seat. Yeah, chat calling us out, chat catching up where we failed to see that.
Yeah, early on in a standard start, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. Some people will take out the NMG speed strats to kill guards quickly, as Krithel has done, and McMonkey also did something similar. We find the mirror in the vanilla boomerang chest.
Yeah, and it's a little difficult to tell because of the timing differences between the two streams, but Krithel is ahead by a few seconds. That can be made up easily at this stage in the game, but we're...
Using a fire rod for the ball and chain guard. Good awareness there. Moon Pearl.
Mirror and Pearl, that's interesting. So now, as soon as they get, the items required to access the Dark World portal, they have a lot of freedom in how they can traverse the world. Ordinarily, without Mirror, you would require a save and quit to get back to the Light World once you're in the Dark World, because you're supposed to get the Mirror before you ever get to the Dark World, but now we actually have that, so that's still true.
And to note, with only Dark Cross left before the back of escape, we are down to hoping that either has bomb or boots, or the rats drop us some bombs, or we're gonna have to come back later for the boots.
We see McMonkey checking his rats pretty thoroughly. It would be really nice to get those early boots, especially if your opponent doesn't get the opportunity. Oh,
and we
go,
find bombs in Dark Cross. So bailed out at the last. And I don't believe that the rats are in a bomb dropping prize pack.
Randomizer giveth and randomizer taketh away. But this Hyrule Castle is really givething, it looks like, because now we get to see what those other two chests are.
One of them will be the map. Well, I suppose the map could still be in. Boots, glove. Wow.
Yeah, this is about the best Hyrule Castle I've seen in a long.
I don't know that I've ever seen a better one.
Now all they need is hammer, and they basically have almost full dark.
Or another. Yeah. So hammer for full Dark World access. That's.
There are a number of portals throughout the world. A few require just the glove and hammer. Most of them require the Titan's Mitts, and only one is accessible without any items at all, and that's the one on top.
Krithel does pick up the map. We'll see if McMonkey skips it. It's an easy thing to not be paying attention to, but yeah, there. That was one thing that in my first mentor race I had to be told not to do, and it's a tiny time save, pretty inconsequential. Krithel is. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that is one of the things that is one of the things that you start getting better at as you gain experience in these races is learning how to just subconsciously track those items that you've picked up in a dungeon and knowing what the rest of them are going to be. And that's one of the main advantages of Ambrosia that you have, is you know that last item is going to be a useful check rather than a dungeon item, so you can more easily deduce what the rest of the items.
Absolutely. We are seeing our first route divergence straight out of Escape, which is very unusual. But with the Moon Pearl and a glove, it makes a lot of sense to do the South Shore. Maybe we'll see some fake flipper checks, because as Sora is in Logic, they don't have enough money yet. But if they can do that, if they could get Flute or a little more money, that would make their eventual inevitable trip to Kakariko a lot more valuable. So you wouldn't have to return for another flute.
Yeah, by the same token, getting more money would make a little more sense before going to check Zora, though.
I do find a bottle.
It also would be reasonable to check
a bottle for McMonkey in the Lost Woods. So
Krithiel's getting a lot of rupees though. Which, if Kakariko is relatively barren in that regard, could prove handy.
Gotta watch out for those crabs, though, at 1 heart.
The most dangerous Light World enemy, a crab. 2 hearts with green mail. With sword and boots, though, it's a little bit...
Oh, no!
Got hit by the bomb explosion.
Not quite given it enough time. That's very unfortunate for Krithel.
Yeah, it's a big time loss to go around and check Ice Rod Cave again. I wouldn't be surprised if they...
And yeah, it looks like they are bailing on that play for now, hoping Ice Rod Cave was nothing. And as they don't have Zora money, those fake flipper checks are much less attractive if you're going to orphan something.
Blue tunic on McMonkeys. Something that both runners will definitely eventually pick. But again, this play from Krithel makes sense, given that we got so many high-value items in the escape sequence itself, so we don't need to bank so hard on the check dent.
And so far, it hasn't been... there's been a bottle and blue mail, but nothing... No progression in Kakariko. Obviously, we're very early.
A lot of the things that you would like to see in Kakariko are honestly things we've already picked up.
Like a hammer.
And as I say that, McMonkey picks up the hammer, which is about the next thing
So with that mirror, I would not be at all surprised to see McMonkey go straight to the Dark World and check Village of Outcasts right alongside Kakariko, which is a very unusual thing to be able to do, but if you can, it makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that if you're unfamiliar with this game, or if you are familiar with this game, you might recall that Thieves Town is supposed to be the 4th Dark World dungeon, so the 7th overall, yet in this state, both runners can fully complete the entire dungeon because it actually doesn't really require anything at all, just a sword or a weapon that's able to hit the boss. So if it's a
Krithel
crystal, that's an easy crystal to pick
finds
up.
the hook shot in the library.
Ooh, that's
because
big because McMonkey didn't go down.
McMonkey will get there soon enough, I'm sure. With that mirror, these Dark World checks are easy. There'll be a lot of mirror transitions or a lot of running around. Wow, Cane of Samaria in chest game for McMonkey.
See, here I get all my ambrosia seeds end up with me doing Ganon without silvers and with the math.
Oh.
They're getting nailed.
They don't have either bow or another sword yet, so let's not get ahead of ourselves.
But yeah, the hook shot isn't as staggering of a find as it might seem, because the stuff in the area of the game that McMonkey is in right now doesn't really require.
But with that hammer and hookshot and mirror, we are just flippers from being able to complete Swamp Palace, which is a crystal, this seed, since we found out from Krithel that Pod was the green pendant. I believe Thieves Town is our other 5-6. Our tracker saw that. Sick kid just giving us 5 rupees today. Nothing too special.
He's feeling a little...
Monkey scaring off that man with a bomb. So pretty soon here, McMonkey is going to be finishing up with the standard Kakariko checks. And we'll have a choice as to what to do in what order. That the runners have an awful lot of checks open to them. They could sequence break Death Mountain at this point. They don't have either flute nor lamp to put it into logic through that old man cave. But McMonkey making the play at 4 hearts into Thieves Town. This is
he does have blue mail, which helps. But yeah, 4 hearts is still a little...
For the blind script can help a lot in mitigating the effects of having low health going into Thieves Town, but it's a dicey proposition at best, even for the best of players. We'll have to see if McMonkey chooses to continue right now, or maybe clears out a little more, hoping to get some more.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to just dip the front of Thieves Town and come back later if you don't think you're prepared for the whole thing, because the first 4 chests are relatively easy to grab. However, in Ambrosia, you know that 1 item is on blind.
And we know that there's 1 more item in back to make that. Yeah, there were.
Well, we found the small key, which means that
there are 3 items in back.
Well, ordinarily in a non-Ambrosia seed, you could see the small key on blind. That doesn't happen in Ambrosia.
No,
so
you
will
actually cannot.
Oh, small key can.
Small key.
You can't find it on blind.
Yeah.
Small key can be in the chest.
Because if you were, for whatever reason, to steal the key meant to go up to the attic and take it downstairs to the big chest, and you didn't have the hammer if the small key were in the big chest, you'd be locked out of actually being able to fight blind or never mind. If the small key was on blind, you'd be locked out of fighting blind if you stole that key and never bombed open the floor. So
Yeah, eventually you start thinking about these things just naturally, and you don't have to use words.
I showed off my knowledge of Thievestown key logic in the last race, and I flubbed it all up here. But getting to...
We're seeing McMonkey continuing on in.
Happy of that blue mail.
Nice juke of that.
He did get hit once, down to 1 heart, and they do 1 heart on blue mail.
Yeah, there he goes.
And
he gets hit before checking.
Oh, has the fairy in the bottle. That makes
why tracking is a hard job. Both.
Well, I knew he had the bottle. I thought it was a bee in it. I think for a second.
Something.
That makes the play make a little more sense. I'm sure both McMonkey and Qirn were hoping that they could save that fairy for blind, but at this point,
that effectively doubled.
They do have Cane of Samaria, which allows for some fun extra blind strats if you're afraid of taking too much damage.
Yeah, I would say Blind and Mothula are both bosses that are relatively accessible relatively early in many seeds, and they both rely on you being able to fight the boss quickly to have the best chance of fighting it safely. It only gets more dangerous as the you don't really benefit much from taking your time.
And the hammer proving to be useless in this Thieves Town, as I believe the compass is sitting in the big chest.
We see McMonkey check.
Might have miscounted. McMonkey did open up the chest in the attic right away, correct? Did not bail.
He died right before it happened. So
I'm wondering if they might have bailed with the invincibility frames.
Oh wait, no, he got the fair. Either way, McMonkey into the blind fight. He's still ahead in terms of this dungeon, but Krithel has done several more overworld checks since he went that.
So, crucially, Krithel did not get all the way to Ice Rod Cave, and McMonkey can make up some of the time in the South Shore if getting to that on the first try. And McMonkey
is assuming
gets a little off script, but has a very nice blind fight. And finishes the blind fight and gets his first crystal as Krithel is starting the blind fight.
1706 for the... Yeah, nice fight.
Monkey about to pick up his hook shot.
Yeah, at this point, you almost don't even check.
I think you head back, check it after you do dig game.
Yeah, with mirror, that makes a lot more sense. There are very few items you would be there. Possibly flippers, but even that you could get.
And with the fire rod, and having checked library already, and the South Shore, Krithel is opting to skip the Southern Dark World for the moment and heading into Skull Woods.
Yeah, Skull Woods and Ambrosia is interesting because, as we mentioned before, one item check is always on the boss, and the entire dungeon only has 2. So,
yeah,
while it can make a lot more sense to dip in open since a lot of the chests are freely available, you're a lot less likely to get lucky. You could be unlucky and both chests are in the back, but since you have fire on...
Yeah, the more common play for oh, I see why they're checking the front, because they're
Yes, 'cause they have
checking this
Mentor.
stuff in front anyway. But the more common play is to walk straight to the back and fight Mothula, and then work your way backwards, because if both items are in the back, you get them as fast as possible. However, if one of them is in the front, you get them in the slowest way possible.
Now Krithel has his bottled fairy, which means that he will have it later on. Tired?
Monkey
Or I suppose
checking
needed.
the
You
race
never
game,
desired.
race game blind with that mirror. Now we'll be heading over to Stumpy and Cave 45.
Yeah, it's very nice to have the mirror at this stage in the game, because Stumpy and Cave 45 are very nice to check. All you would really want here is maybe shovel on one of those two, and you'd have maximum efficiency.
And Cave 45 is the correct one to check first, just for that reason. If Shovel's there, you'd hate to walk back up over by Stumpy. If it's on Stumpy, you don't really care.
I'm glad that you were the one to name it Cave 45, because I always call it Cave 42 when I'm playing. Too much Douglas Adams. Yeah, so right now, the items that we're waiting on, logically, are bow, ice rod, lamp, and flute, and whichever medallions open the dungeons, and Titan's Mitt. Titan's Mitts and flippers. So yeah, we're still a ways from go mode, but the nicest thing to see would be flute. If somebody can get flute early, that would be a huge...
Yeah, looking for our logical mountain access, both runners opting to skip it. It makes a lot of sense with full clearable crystal dungeons in play, and the mountain out of logic at this point. Hype Cave paying out, but not really paying out, if you know what I mean, for McMonkey.
Paying out, but not paying.
There we go. That's the wordplay I was looking for.
I'll try and hammer.
Makes a lot of sense.
Braver person than I.
Because I think it's 16 or something.
Yeah, it's certainly the correct move, but
very nicely done.
yeah, that was
And
was
gets
a
the
little bit spooky.
flippers.
Oh, there we go. Nice. So that puts Swamp Palace on the table.
Yeah, it's a pity, because if McMonkey had done the same play, could be potentially just working Swamp Palace into the dam check, which is always something that...
So Krithel, I always see a second eye there. It's such a skinny letter, but sitting a lot more, because that's two crystals down and in play for a third, and Swamp Palace is relatively.
And yeah, Krithel gets to doesn't get to combine it with the South Shore, but gets to combine Swamp with the Southern Dark World. We're going to find out what the second item in Skullwoods is. Opening that chest first is always... I always wait. Even if it's the item, it's just more pleasant.
Oh, I missed if they came in through a door or not.
They did not.
If they came in through a door, it would... Because if they came in through a door, it might make sense, because then they could mirror straight to the entrance. Setting up for the bomb jump. The Cane of Burna, that's nice to find. It doesn't open up anything, but it's nice to have sometimes, especially if you half magic late. You can make certain...
I believe technically it actually... Well, no. It doesn't open it up yet because the mountain isn't in play yet, but I believe Cane of Burna by itself opens up Spike Cave in logic.
Yeah, interestingly, Spike Cave is put into logic, as in how the randomizer considers an item accessible or not if you have either the Cane of Burna or the Cape. Interestingly enough, that is the vanilla location of the Cane of Burna, so you're, I guess, supposed to pick up the Cape, but you really can do it at any point, but it won't require you to damage boost the entire way, which is kind. It is kind. Ooh, Water Walk. Very helpful with
Heart Piece on the Lake Hylia Island.
much faster.
An addendum to the Spike Cave logic. With the Cape, as it has faster magic drain, it also requires either a bottle or half magic for the Cape to put Spike Cave in logic. So if half magic is in Spike Cave, you're more likely to not have the Cape unlock it. Technically, it's kind of a moot point and very niche for most runners who can work around that with hook shot or damage boosting. Interesting.
Yeah, knowing those logic rules is especially helpful for routing because you know if it's worth it to check Spike Cave or not, depending on what could possibly be in there. If you're just looking for one item that you need and Spike Cave isn't technically in logic, you probably to check it. It could pay off, but it's
Ooh, blue potion from the fairy. Nice.
yeah, not worth going back there for it, but that won't be an option for Krithel because Krithel only has the one bottle. McMonkey preparing to check King Zor.
Luckily, McMonkey not going to want the item on Zora Ledge. I don't think they have requirements to do a splash deletion with the fake flippers, or splash deletion fake flipper. I think you'd need something else to put it in. Zora not giving us a return on our investment, but about as close as he can ever do.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Really, you're worried about losing the time to King Zora because after you buy his item, you don't really need.
Yeah, especially with Pod being a pendant and having done Bottle Vendor and Dig Game already, the runners are pretty set on rupees for whatever they may want to do.
And McMonkey looking to check Bonk Cave here, I believe. No, he's not. He's
sequence breaking the mountain, earlier. I think.
It's a little bit unfortunate considering he could. We've got Krithel here preparing to do.
Yeah, I'm not sure what McMonkey's going to do after this play.
Yeah, especially since Tower of Hera up
there. They do have a fire source to be able to complete it, which they may or may not. It's pretty fast if you have the hook shot to do Herapot.
Now, a pendant dungeon dip, to me, would make a lot more sense to do pod since there's there.
Yeah,
and you get the green pendant from.
They don't have a bow yet.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I wouldn't advise it right now in any case.
Yeah, the pendant Hera clear is more since you're on the mountain, you might as well.
Right.
There's no better time than now.
We do have access to the right side of the mountain, and that's quite a few checks. However, we don't have Titan's Mitts, so we can't do the dark.
One thing that the runners can find by sequence breaking the mountain is what is their logical mountain access. If they find Lamp up here, they know they're going to find Flute somewhere in the lower...
Well, McMonkey getting Spectacle Rock Cave item. He checked what it was. I didn't quite see what it was, but apparently something he wants. Mushroom. Could be handy.
Opens up the possibility of using fake powder as well as getting the associated check of the potion.
Krithel proceeding through Swamp Palace here. We'll see if they decide to skip the left. It is especially advisable in Ambrosia, since you know that one of the checks is going to be on the... It is possible for the entire left side to contain nothing but dungeon items, which is the best case scenario if you just...
And the worst case if you decide not to skip it, as we saw in an earlier race today. Yeah, I think it was map and small key, or map and big key for compass in big chest, or vice versa with map and compass.
Yeah, I think Swamp doesn't have any keys in small chests, so they're...
Other than the first one.
Yeah, other
which
than
is
that
always
first one, which is guaranteed unless you're doing some sort of key. So there's sort of a... You're hoping that those left side chests are 2 out of 3 items, but it doesn't look like Krithel is doing it, because there's no other real reason to go into this room if you're deciding to...
And if you're deciding not to skip it, this is the fastest way to go about it. I didn't see what we got in the first chest, but if it is a dungeon item, a lot of runners will just opt to get...
Yeah, get left side anyway.
Since
one of them is almost guaranteed. It doesn't look like McMonkey found anything in Paradox. Neither runner has found a sword upgrade yet, which is another thing that will be required if they are to defeat Ganon and clear.
We got map. Are the runners going to be kicking themselves? Oh, we got the big key, I think, in front, because I think they opened the big chest right away.
No, I didn't. I was watching McMonkey at the time. I was hoping that we would see something cool in Paradox. Not to be. He hasn't found much of it all on the mount.
So at this point, having found nothing in Death Mountain, do you check Hera? Really hoping this dungeon or this excursion pays off. They may...
Personally, I think it would be you'd be chancing it.
Yeah,
because you might have to come back up here anyway. I mean, you do with gloves to do Turtle Rock. At that point, you probably have everything you need. Oh, here we see the Samaria method of doing Diver Down here on Krithel's.
I like this. Samaria is technically a little faster in back. On the left side, Bomb is technically a little faster because you menu to it anyway to set up to change the crystal peg.
Krithel found Quake in there. Meanwhile, we see McMonkey.
And a bow.
Oh, bow in the waterfall room. That's very... Yeah, Krithel's playing the seed. The seed is playing into Krithel's hands very handily now. McMonkey on a... Maybe a wild goose chase. There we get Ice Rod, though. That's interesting. Because now he's prepared to fight Trinex at the bottom of...
Provided we find Mitts.
And well, yeah, he's not prepared to do it immediately, but he eventually... Krithel will have to go in there. And fortunately, though, it is in Tower of Hera, which is, you know, sort of right now.
Yeah, if they haven't found it by that point, I would 100% of the time check Tower of Hera before going back down the mountain.
Yeah, Krithel in showing an interesting strategy on the Argus fight. With only the fighter's sword, it takes quite a few slashes to take them down, a spin slash and a regular slash, so he's sort of maximizing his...
I believe that slashes do not actually hurt the puffs.
Oh yeah, they may not.
You need
Does it double hit with the spin?
It does, because they don't take knockback. So
I see. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't do that a whole lot. I usually have a good sword. So...
McMonkey, meanwhile, on the other side, we sort of missed the Harapot. It was very clean and very quick. It was the perfect scenario for Harapot because with the small key in the basement cage and the map chest containing the first item in Ambrosia, you know the second one's on the boss. And if you have the hook shot and the big keys in the basement, and you don't want to wait for it, you know, you don't need to use it to get the item because you already have the other item. So saving a little time there. And Mountain Trip not paying off maybe like they hoped, but still paying off, I think.
Yeah, it is very possible for Krithel to go on a wild goose chase for that ice rod. I'd almost even expect maybe a blind dip into Turtle Rock.
I would agree if it came to that. Monkey using that blue potion that you got from the fairy to check Spike Cave. Which, I mean, you've cleared everything except Ether Tablet. And if you have the safeties to be able to do it, there is no better time.
There's not, especially since he already picked up that ice rod from Hera, there's going to be no faster time to check Spike Cave. So it's either you check it now or potentially have to spend even more time to check it later. So it does make some sense. You only risk the time that you...
Monkey doing another fake flipper. Gonna check that mushroom real quick.
Yeah, Monkey doing a lot of over that early Skullwoods dive.
Paying out in spades because that flipper, that bow are all just leading into more clearable dungeons.
Because now Krithel can clear Eastern Palette.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if we'll see a dip into Pod. Green Pendant Pod is a very lucrative proposition, and we saw a save scum of that mushroom from McMonkey, I believe. Yep, still has the mushroom after the...
Wants to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah, and with no flute, it doesn't make any sense to check the magic bat first. I assume at this point we will see McMonkey pick up where they left off in the village and head to Skullwoods. Maybe doing fake powder first, but yeah, fake powder first sounds like. Because that's actually quite smart, because fake powder requires using up all of your magic. And
I was just about to ask if there was a reason that he was going ham with the fire up.
So what you do is you empty your magic, you try to use the Cane of Samaria, and then you immediately menu as that beeping sound indicating that you can't do it is happening, and menu to the mushroom. Interestingly, it works with real powder as well, which can be useful if you don't have any magic to actually use.
Yeah, that beeping sound is not programmed particularly well. A lot of strange things happen around that beeping.
Interestingly, Krithel is checking Pod before clearing Eastern. I don't know if I agree with this play. You're only a couple items, more on Krithel's end from Go mode, but, Eastern could have in Krithel's mind the flute, the ice rod, and another sword, and mitts.
I was about to say, well, you need... Technically, the lamp is required to do Eastern, but I'd sooner do Eastern without the lamp than Pod.
Absolutely. They do have the fire rod, which makes the worst of the rooms a little better, that turtle room in the basement. But... yeah,
I have done Pod in the dark once.
Krithel also making the choice to not take that key through the front door. Kind of an unusual choice. Getting 2 keys for their trouble. So, both
used to save that key all the time, but a lot of the time, using that key right away makes everything flow.
Especially if you have the mirror. you can just walk through that door a few times and save yourself a lot of time navigating Pod.
They may be clearing this front area to, hoping that there's something early.
Yeah, these checks are much faster than basically any of the checks in Eastern. And
These checks make sense if they're planning on only doing a dip rather than a full clear. If they're doing a full clear, if they're going to the back anyway, they may as well go there first, catch these on the way out, and they find
silver arrows right before.
Now, that is an item that we may not see.
Yeah,
it's almost like they knew they wanted that. Like this seed being very kind to Krithel. That is almost certainly, outside of a progression item, that is the best item that you could see if you're deciding to do a pod dip before required Eastern. And McMonkey just going through Skullwood.
Oh, as I was going to say about doing the fake powder before Skullwoods, with that Hammer Dark World access and boots, you can bonk that tree right before the portal and get a full magic refill, which conveniently works out because they'd need one after fake powder. And if you're going there anyway, it makes sense to make use of it. McMonkey also deciding to do the front before heading to Mothula. I wonder if this isn't because he might be a little uncomfortable with the prospect of the Fighter Sword Mothula fight.
We see the flute in Pod. Wow.
Which means that
this is a staggeringly lucrative play, and that
flute is lamp locked, so
right.
Lamp is somewhere.
It was in the dark room. There are torches in there, so Fire Rod logically makes.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I thought it was the dark maze since there was no.
They
light.
went through that. Yep. So yeah, the Fire Rod does put the rupee room in logic.
So
any dark room that has torches.
That means the flute is logical mountain access. So from the viewer's perspective, we now everything McMonkey has done is in logic. Fake flipper checks.
Now we're very likely going to see Krithel go up the mountain after clearing Eastern immediately.
I would imagine so. Not having mitts yet, can't capitalize on the mire area with that flute, so you go to the next best place.
Yeah, and it would be very, very easy to assume that mitts would be up on the mountain with all the checks that are up there. And now and it looks like Krithel is going to full clear Pod. Not a bad play because the bosses were 2 checks, guaranteed a check from Ambrosia, and then you get the green pendant, which is very easy to check after doing Eastern, since Sahasrala's house is just sort of very nice routing decisions in terms of economy of.
Meanwhile, McMonkey headed to his Mothula fight. Shortening up that crystal lead.
Yeah, unfortunately for McMonkey, Krithel isn't exactly wasting his time in Pod. It's been very lucrative. So any time that he's making up in the crystal race, he's eventually going to have to lose at least some of.
It could potentially make up some time with, say, a flute go mode, provided we don't find anything on Helmasaur, or that green pendant turn in. But yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff that Krithel has done clearing-wise that McMonkey hasn't.
Yeah, I expect we see McMonkey go straight to Swamp.
It's both the obvious play and the correct one in this instance. Just 20 rupees on Helmasaur, but also getting that green pendant and shortly be mirroring to Eastern.
Yeah, chat pointing out that McMonkey had a nice fighter sword, Mothula. Once again, I will say,
Not
braver
sure what
folk
they
than
were.
I have been bitten hard by putting off Skullwood, specifically to avoid having to do fighter sword Mothula.
Not possibly wondering what they were worrying about not doing that right after Thieves Town, but
Now, interestingly, it's possible that Eastern Palace here is logically unclearable. It's not actually unclearable because the dark rooms are ludicrously easy. But if we don't find Lamp in here, then and Big Key is in its vanilla location, then by logic, Eastern isn't completable here. Probably nil consequences.
I think Krithel found the
Okay, well then, I was trying to make an. Wasn't that interesting? Even if the Big Key hadn't, it would just have some minor implications on what the boss item could or could not be.
And there's our second sword.
So we are now ready to defeat Master Sword Silver.
See if McMonkey may be feeling a little behind after finding so relatively little on the mountain. And knowing those flippers have been in play since they had Dark World access. See if he decides to skip left side.
Yeah, and I also noticed that Krithel went straight for the boss. I wasn't strictly paying attention to the checks, but I'm assuming he had already picked up 2 items, which meant that any further items just contained dungeon items, so the far left side chest.
Always a fun strat in this room pre-Armos, and could set up for the quick kill, but any kill with silver arrows on Armos is quick. So that was quicker than many. And we find that real powder. So Krithel going to get at some point that useless item that we got from Magic Bat.
Yeah, interestingly, that's not logically available yet still because...
Well, it is, because Armos
no, it is
in
because,
logic.
Yeah, Armos is logically available. See, I even made that point earlier. I even was thinking to myself, oh, only that room in Eastern is lamp locked.
McMonkey debating, but ultimately deciding to go left.
Krithel went to the light world, was in the light world and decides to warp to the dark world to get to Sahasra. It looks like.
Yeah, it's a little faster to navigate in the dark world, and also I think a lot of people will automatically just and just a piece of heart from Sahasrahla today.
That's all right.
Yeah, if you mirror in the doorway, it's pretty hard to avoid walking back into that mirror portal coming out of Eastern. So could have just been happenstance. Likely.
Interesting that we're not seeing a save and quit here.
I would expect that we're seeing at least Pyramid.
Yes, that would make sense. Now, if this were a mystery seed, this would make perfect sense, because then you'd be able to go and check your check.
Oh no, we're not.
No, he's not going to Pyramid. Interesting. What hasn't been checked down here? Oh, I see. Bomb. That's right, because we've cleared Thieves Town and Eastern. So bomb is
That's
now
why
available. So that makes a lot more sense to go do.
we
straight
are
to-
runners and commentators instead of mentors in this tournament. Missing things like that. Ooh, and Krithel using the damage boost on if you get damaged by something, you have a brief window of time. It's not terribly easy to do where you can dash with that bomb following you.
Yeah, I tend to personally avoid using too many glitches, but that is one I've been highly tempted to learn, just because the temptation is so strong to just make this trip. Particularly if you haven't defeated Aghanim 1 in the seed, which gives you a convenient portal straight at piece of heart on the pyramid ledge. And what has the Fat Fairy's Fountain got?
1 rupee and a couple bombs.
It was about as useless as it could have been, since I believe Krithel was completely full on bombs, and that rupee was next. I mean, we did just come from the bomb shop. We really have no further need of bombs. McMonkey going for the Samaria diver down as well. Very nicely.
Krithel, if I had to guess, probably going to activate that flute and check the magic bat before heading up the mountain.
Yeah, we'll see if Krithel decides to go and clear Hera. I would imagine so.
Given that there was nothing else of note on the mountain, and Krithel hasn't found anything else of note other than that flute, it's a pretty easy clear in my mind. So we are down to not very many locations for our mitts.
Meyer is inaccessible.
We have no book for the tablets.
And we can't get to Desert Palace via the swamp because, again, no mitts.
Have we seen North Dark World,
we have
Graveyard
not.
Ledge, and King's Tomb?
So that is where I imagine we're going to find the mitts.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if Krithel decides to maybe check those before heading up the mountain. I can't imagine so.
It could make sense to roll it in with Catfish. You know, go all the way across that, check all those checks as you go. But given that flute, logical mountain access, hookshot, entire right side mountain, it makes way more sense at this point to go for the mountain. So that's what I imagine.
Yep, and straight to flute.
Yeah, so somebody in chat asked where you want the mitts. The mitts are required to access the final 3 dungeons, which are Ice Palace, Misery Mire, and Turtle Rock. Misery Mire and Turtle Rock have additional medallion requirements, which are also randomized. So we don't know which ones we need. If they're both Bombos, then we got to find that too. Chances are pretty good that the runners have what they need.
This is kind of surprising. Checking Agina with no mitts for Dark World access. Maybe just really don't want to miss those mitts before they head to Dark Death Mountain, and just 20 rupees.
Yeah, I mean, that is logical, because if you have the mitts, we are all ready to defeat Trinex here. I mean, I guess they don't know they're gonna find the ice rod up there.
Barring a Bombos.
Yeah, and Bombos entry. But it is reasonable, because again, as we mentioned, we are running out of... Interestingly, we see Krithel going for the old man, despite the item for it not being...
I mean, save and quit spot is very nice to have. And these dark rooms are not...
Yeah, they're pretty
terribly
free,
difficult to navigate.
And it's not a huge time loss.
They did not... I believe we determined they did not do Graveyard Ledge and King's Tomb. McMonkey not making the same play to wait until Eastern is completed with that bow to check the Pyramid Ledge. Maybe hoping for Lamp, which before making the Pyramid and Pod play. I have done the same thing.
Yeah, that does make sense considering that you are missing enough items to want to dive into both Eastern and Pod, both of which have dark rooms that are very nice to navigate with Lamp. We all love Lamp in the randomizer. We don't need it, but we sure do.
Krithel forgetting that one of the major items still at large is those mitts.
Tried to.
Yep.
Yeah, when you've had as nice of a seat as Krithel's been having, you almost assume you already got it.
So yeah, I think it was Catfish could have them as well. I don't think either runner has checked Catfish.
Right, and I mean, I almost consider that a part of the north side.
Yeah. Very easy
especially when you have flippers. It's kind of. Now, I don't recall. Did we see McMonkey check?
That's because that's how he set up the water walk.
Ah, and Krithel is going to be very disappointed in.
Yeah, I can't.
Monkey takes the hit while escorting Kiki to helpness. That means the monkey runs away and he has to pay the fee again. Luckily, the first fee. Ooh, Krithel gets stuck.
That's fine. Gets close enough to see what is on the floating island. Jumps straight down into Spiral Cave, which is it might point to skipping Hera. I doubt it.
Yeah, honestly, if you know Hera is a pendant dungeon, it makes a lot of sense to check this first, since
That's true.
if it's what you need, you lose a lot of.
So we are potentially mitts from go mode. Krithel also needs to find that ice rod, but it'll only be a matter of time. Could have a bombos requirement and would definitely like to see a third soul. But that could be all we need.
We could also still, because one of the aforementioned items could be.
I don't know either of these runners comfort with dark rooms in general, but from personal experience, I can say that a runner's comfort with dark rooms in general does not necessarily correspond to a comfort with the Misery Mire dark room. So we could have one or both runners take a little extra time to maybe look for that lamp.
Yeah, in general, Misery Mire is one of the hardest dark rooms to navigate. It doesn't have an easy to remember layout, and the hazards can come at you from any angle. It has those torches that spit the fireballs at you, so they always come directly at you, across the room, across everything. And it's hard to sort of figure out where those are going to come from in the dark. You don't only need to know, your position, but the position of static elements.
And laying that Samaria block is always a pain.
Yes, it's remarkably precise where that block has to be. We see Krithel save and quit before.
Wow, this could make or break this run for Krithel.
Yeah, depending on how desperate Krithel is to assume that the ice rod is in Turtle Rock, which is a very safe assumption under many normal circumstances, because the ice rod is needed for nothing else. So it logically being in Turtle Rock can happen a lot. It actually can happen less in Ambrosia compared to other modes, because there's a guaranteed item drop on the boss in Ambrosia. So that's one less item that can be before Trinex. But I have had Turtle Rock dips pay off a lot, where you dive into the dungeon despite not having the items required to fully complete it, because one of them.
And we know McMonkey is going to single dip Turtle Rock, because The only things that can keep him out at this point are Mitts and the medallion, which once he finds those,
Once one of the runners finds Mitts, we're gonna see. It is possible that Turtle Rock is no Turtle Rock. We're only Mitts and the medallion away, right? So
Turtle
yeah,
Rock
it's not possible that
could
Turtle
still have
Rock
the
will be
lamp,
or any other dungeon.
but
That's true. And Turtle Rock is a friendlier dark room. That is one of the friendliest dark rooms that isn't in Eastern.
we'll see.
You have those static fire bars.
McMonkey is making the play to go back into and check pod, doing the more conventional choice first. The full clearable crystal dungeon, and hope you find progression there.
Yeah, that is logically the safer choice. It's interesting because there are choices that make sense from a, game completion perspective, and then choices that make sense from a check density perspective. Checking pod has a lot more checks than Eastern does, but you don't need to complete pod anyway. If you needed to do pod anyway, then it would be a no-brainer to do pod first because it's only possible to find items that will make Eastern easier. But spending more time than necessary in a non-essential dungeon could cost you pressure.
And McMonkey looking like he's going to have a quicker clear of pod as well. With that extra key, he's going to only take one trip down the Bowlock side and not have to go from the front again.
Yeah, McMonkey could also save time by not deciding to full clear the dungeon after finding the necessary items in here. Although he could make a mistake that I made twice in one run. Oh, here we see Krithel picking up the ice rod in not necessarily as smooth of a find as one might have expected. He does pick it up before last locationing it, which was a danger. But as I was saying, McMonkey may make the choice to skip out after finding one useful item, but finding silvers first is generally not going to make you run away from a dungeon. So he's likely going to find the flute.
The interesting choice is whether to continue after you find that flute.
Right.
Missing Mitts, it doesn't really open up much, and McMonkey has done all of the Death Mountain check that logically opens up. So
continue on and fight the.
Yeah. So we are just about tied up. The apparent lead that Krithel had has shortened a lot as they have retread the runners have retread the same ground, but still, if I had to guess, I think Krithel is in the lead because Spike Cave is the last check that McMonkey has done that Krithel has not. And
well, it looks like they're going.
I think Krithel will be done with Spike Cave before McMonkey is done with pod, unless they skip Helmasaur and the 2 guaranteed items there for whatever reason.
Interesting. I failed to notice where Krithel got half magic.
There it is in pod.
Oh, okay. Well,
McMonkey just got it.
Failure to notice has been rectified. I failed to notice when McMonkey grabbed it too, so I guess I had. Yeah, luckily the redip onto the mountain didn't cost Krithel as much time as it could have, or certainly could have cost McMonkey because Krithel. Here we see Krithel setting up the Dark World Warp to go back into the Dark World, presumably to check the north side checks. Neither runner has found the cape, which means that Bumper Cave is full. I don't recall if we've seen Bumper Cave Ledge. I do not think we have.
If we have, it was nothing. If we haven't, it could be something.
Which also means that we need to find cape first. I'm willing to assume that Bumper Cave is not a crucial item, simply because
given
of how
that we are.
That's interesting. We see McMonkey using ether in the dark. gives you some reference on those little triceratops.
Interesting point in chat. That
Yeah,
Mitz,
it could be a ped seed, but we'd be required to find book first since we need that to access.
oh yeah.
But again, other than that, both runners set up fairly well for a ped seed, so
McMonkey
kind of both.
leaves pod with that flute.
That's nice. I mean, given his fruitless early trip to Death Mountain, he might be feeling like he needs to
Which he does. That's very it's the play he needed to make, I think, given what we know. Unless
interesting to see Krithel leave the portal up there to go check.
I think
Krithel
checked both Lumberjack and Bonk Rock.
Oh yeah,
to save themselves.
Was the one who checked Lumberjack
to check to save themselves one mirror portal.
That is an interesting check because you can see what the item is, and if it's an important item, you know you need to defeat Aghanim at some point. And if somebody decides to take the time to check it, and it turns out giving them important information, it takes specific circumstances, but it can play out pretty well. You can get a distinct. That doesn't happen often, but when it does, it
bombs. So it looks like we may. It's down to King's Tomb and Catfish, I think, and Mitz and King's Tomb is one of the classic new runner slip ups that we could very well see here today.
You see a nice little slick move where Krithel just telekinesis is the tombstone.
And there
away.
we have
and
Mitz. So provided
so
we have no
trouble.
We are at most bombos from go mode, provided comfort with the dark rooms. So
yeah, it would be nice to find lamp, but not strictly necessary. In a race scenario, you like to be able to do those dark rooms without lamp. I once had a seed that it gives you lamp, but it was in a pendant ice palace dip, which is never a comfortable position. You save a lot of time by not doing that at all. And here we see Ether for Maya.
Krithel opting not even to check Meyer Shed before heading into Meyer. Looking for Tempered Sword.
That makes sense.
I probably would still, but
with silvers, not a lot in Meyer can actually give you too much trouble.
That's
and it's
true. And
not too much trouble to check Meyer Shed on the way out.
Much easier to
provided you find the
checkerboard.
You only at most need to find one more thing.
Right.
And that requires Turtle Rock to be Bombos, which is only one out of.
And given that Krithel has headed into Meyer, I think we can assume that they are going to attempt the Meyer Dark Room.
One would imagine so.
It would be a real pain to see missing Master Sword and Lamp. I think I check Meyer Shed.
Yeah, I would
just
too.
in case. If Lamp's in Meyer Shed, though it can't be actually, because oh no, Flute was only Fire Rod locked.
That's true. All right, we both have been.
We have ourselves a God Meyer. So picking up that key despite having one from the bridge chest.
Yeah, if I recall, is Meyer a 2-check dungeon?
It is a 2-check dungeon, and
a lot of those.
Given that one of them is on the boss, we are going to be leaving that one in Meyer, I think, regardless of what it is.
Yeah, here we have Krithel in go mode, provided that Turtle Rock is not.
Kind of an interesting choice, in my opinion, to do Meyer. Well, I suppose you hope Vitreous has a sword, I guess, before heading to Ice Palace. With half magic, not quite as painful maybe, but you can spam Fire Rod. But
here we see McMonkey checking Meyer Shed. We'll see if that's happy for him.
nice health refill. Nice to have sword beams to start off Meyer. But nothing that Krithel is going to be too upset about missing.
We're also going to see Checker here.
And this makes a lot of sense.
And I think... Because I think McMonkey has not checked Agina's cave yet either. We saw Krithel do it before the mountain climb. But it would make sense to do this here. There's a shield upgrade. Interesting to know. Neither of the runners...
Yeah, McMonkey, I am assuming, is not terribly comfortable with...
yeah, he's checking a lot of places for that.
Skipping Agina. Not going to bite him.
We got a sword on Vitrius.
Well, this paid off, and given that Krithel has completed the hardest dark room in the game and found the Tempered Sword and Silvers, definitely going to be go-moding Ice Palace. And assuming
we have everything we need for a quick Ice Palace.
Assuming we don't need Bombos is, I think, the play that Krithel will be
again. Yeah,
with.
that is a very reasonable play to make. Again, it's only 2 out of 3. It's only 1 out of 3 rather that it is Bombos. 2 out of 3 that is clearable. You take those off.
And depending on where and when you find it, the odds could be higher than that.
Hey, interesting. We see McMonkey going back up Death Mountain. Really wants that lamp. I can only imagine.
Can clear Turtle Rock and is potentially comfortable with that dark room. Good.
Yeah, again,
Master Sword Trinex is a very difficult fight. I'm a little surprised to see McMonkey checking Turtle Rock before Ice Palace in this circumstance. It's Quake.
Yeah, Quake. Quake on Turtle Rock. We are in go mode on Krithel's side. And I guess on McMonkey's side, if we ignore the logical lamp requirement. We do know that the lamp is logically accessible right now, but with, Ice Palace, all of the chests in Ice Palace, I think one check that we left unchecked in Mire, any of those could be lamp. I suspect we're not going to see Krithel pick it up at all. We may see McMonkey give it up in the interest of saving time.
Yeah, kind of surprised to see Krithel open any chests in Ice Palace with their current load.
Good to see the lamp in Hookshot Cave here. That would be an unfortunate spot for it to be, since it would sort of prevent you, if you were following logic strictly, from going straight into Mire. You have to climb the mountain a couple of times.
Yeah, going up the mountain, McMonkey has committed to another mountain climb at some point.
To note if he does turtle.
I can't imagine, like, Lamp and Turtle Rock is something that's not uncommon. It's unfortunate. I think you'd be foolish not to try Turtle Rock, given that you can clear it, if you made the decision to come up here and check.
Yeah, I would assume a brand new runner might not dive into Turtle Rock here, but Turtle Rock Dark Room is...
And there's Bombos in Ice Palace, so Fire Rod locked Bombos.
It is a little unfortunate that he's doing Turtle Rock right now, though, seeing as it is very convenient to do that dungeon last, since you just have to walk straight over to Ganon's Tower afterwards.
And the difference between Master Sword Trinex and Tempered Sword Trinex is second probably only to Master versus Tempered Ganon in the difficulty spike.
Yeah, for experience, Gold Sword is nice to have. It saves time mostly in the Ganon fight, but Tempered Sword is usually all you.
for the best of the best runners, Tempered and Gold can take actually about the same amount of time on Ganon. Pretty difficult. Not many runners at this level are doing a 1-in-1 cycle, but Trinex and Cold Stare, it can save some time, regardless of who's doing it. Krithel having a little trouble with Cold Stare, but finishing off the fight pretty easily.
Oh, and he gets 20 rupees.
You
love to see 20 rupees.
In on that race to 1,000 rupees.
The unofficial true. Now, Master Sword Vitreous, as chat points out, can be difficult depending on the other items you have. If you have silvers, it basically sword, because each of the little eyeballs only takes one hit. And at that point, like if you only have Master Sword and you're fighting Vitreous, it makes a lot more sense to just toss the bombs at the eye. Yeah, here we see Krithel going up to Turtle Rock, the last dungeon. I'm assuming we are not going to. Krithel is ready to rumble. By contrast, McMonkey still has 3 crystals left to.
And with Krithel entering Turtle Rock before McMonkey has finished it, this is probably this race has probably been decided at this point. Rando can happen. This is past GT routing. This is past dark room failures in Turtle Rock. But both runners have put on a really great run so far.
Yeah, no major execution mistake. Outside of that, unfortunate hit that McMonkey took in Thieves Town, but he had this. Yeah, we see McMonkey wisely choose to skip. It could have lamp, but at this point, I'm sure they know they've spent enough time looking.
But yeah, be sure to give both our runners a follow, Monkey and Krithel. And their mentors a follow, Raylan Tenkier and Nobly. Or no, Raylan is not available. Qirn is the mentor for this one. Both are commentators to follow, myself and Ezmar. Our tracker, Tomultak13, and our restreamer, RickyofKokiri. It's been a great match to commentate, and
yeah, the tracking especially has been very helpful. If at any point I wanted to remind myself what each runner has, it's always right down there. So that's the unsung heroes of the.
And Krithel is the first to reach 1,000 rupees as well.
Let's give them a round.
Get your GRs in chat for good rupees.
See McMonkey doing laser bridge here.
Taking the safety, yeah, it's, in my opinion, it's the correct choice when facing Trinex with a Master Sword. I personally always opt to try to use Hammer on Trinex. The hitbox is trickier to deal with, but it just gives the fight a lot less time to go off the rails.
And one of these days, I'd like to take a look at some sort of hack that shows you the hitboxes, because some of these I'd like to know what. It's sure not the same as what you're seeing, especially when.
McMonkey looking for another sword, I presume, on Laser Bridge, having the key to get to Trinex already. We'll see if McMonkey decides to fake powder to get some health refill.
Yeah, since we have seen the Tempered Sword already on Vitreous, it's seems reasonable to assume that Ganon's Tower is going to have another sword at this point. I forget, does Ambrosia use basic item placement or advanced?
I think it can use either. I think the
Well, it could use either, but
preset.
we're using
Yeah,
advanced.
all of these
since
are advanced.
we had flute.
Yeah.
Because I believe basic
Well,
requires lamp for all dark rooms. I'm
half
remembering this from before they
Catfish. If lamp was on Catfish, that would still
That's
have
true.
been
It would have been long.
quote unquote in logic.
We see Hammer Trinex on McMonkey's side. I think he's hoping to head off the. He was thinking about heading off the Ice Head before it messed up. With the amount of hearts they have and having blue mail, though, this can be not. And I believe McMonkey still has that blue potion from the Waterfall Fairy, if I'm remembering correctly.
I believe he had to use that in Spike Cave because he did not yet have Cane of Burn.
That's.
But gets both the heads down, and I think it should be just one hit with either the sword or hammer. Never mind. There we go. Very good Trinex fight from McMonkey.
Yeah, I generally don't find that that second phase too terribly difficult, but it is difficult to do it quickly if your equipment.
That first phase is very difficult to manage with the Master Sword. It takes so many hits. I believe 10 per head or 9. Yeah, it's a lot of time.
Playing with fire here in the dark room. It's got one heart, so.
It does have a fairy in a bottle.
Oh yeah, he does still have that fairy because he picked it up later.
Would prefer not to use it.
Unfortunately, McMonkey, after clearing Turtle Rock, still has to go somewhere. Yes, we see Krithel here, not opting to go to Laser Bridge at all. McMonkey can play a little reckless since he has the red mail, but I don't think it's going to save him too much time in these two dungeons. We see Ice Palace before Misery Mire, unfortunate, because Tempered Sword would help him save a lot of time on a Cold Stare. Certainly more than the...
Yeah, at this point, it's... You know, the routing was so much less efficient because of avoiding that Mire Dark Room, I think.
What I'm hoping we see is fairly good execution from McMonkey here in Ice Palace and Misery Mire. Hard read on GT Big Key in Tile Room. Personally,
it would certainly be very entertaining.
And here we see, we didn't touch on it when Krithel was doing Ice Palace, but we see McMonkey most likely going for Icebreaker, which is Samaria Clip. Basically lets you skip the entire left side of Ice Palace, which is notable for containing 0 chests, and lets you do the right side, which is notable for containing pretty much all of the chests. So ordinarily in vanilla, you go all the way down, climb all the way back up, come up those stairs, and that's the big key. So it makes you go all the way around. With this clip, we can just skip straight there, get all the chests on the way down, and saves quite a bit of time. And as Krithel goes into Ganon's Tower, we are opening up a little guessing game. There are 22 chests in Ganon's Tower that can contain the big key. We're going to be guessing which one contains the key when Krithel opens it.
Yeah, we dropped the ball there. Didn't give a lot of time for guesses in chat.
Well, there's still some time if it's not the first one, or the second one, or the third one. We see full left side first. So no hope room. The 2 chests.
I imagine we'll be seeing some dark magician strats, because it's really hard to justify skipping Hope Room for very long, given how common it is for people to do Hope Room into full left. So I assume we'll see.
Those unfamiliar, the room on the right leads to 2 chests. The room on the left leads to a whole bunch of rooms with 4 chests. There's more chests on the left side, so it makes sense to do this left side for chest density. But it's basically free to. You'll see Krithel go down here in just a moment. Check these 2 chests, step out, and then do left side. It gives you 2 extra checks for almost no.
Yeah, there are a few different strats. Most of them are pretty comparable in time.
Now this is the tile room. There is one chest that appears once you have waited for all of the tiles to come up and get destroyed. It takes what, a minute or so? Feels like
far too long.
I don't know, a couple minutes. It is a very long time, and it's generally the last place that runners will check. Despite going straight through that room, it is a lot faster to hope that it is somewhere else.
Getting grabbed by the Wallmaster.
It gives him a second chance to do Hope Room, or to do Tile Room. Just saying. It is a very hard read to assume the big key is there, but I think in my most recent Link to the Past ladder race, I got burned by not doing it. I didn't give in to the temptation, and always hurts to see that. But as expected, we will not see him do the Tile Room the second time around. Perhaps the gods were giving, but this is indeed the correct play. Especially with the convenience of the routing that Krithel has had thus far, it isn't unreasonable for him to assume that he has at least some lead. Possible lead. He has no way of knowing how large it actually.
Yeah, skipping all of Dark Death Mountain and Mire area. Well, Krithel did go back and check it after. Making the choice to... Oh, wow, going all the way right. This is... Okay. Changes their mind.
I think they wanted to pick up the extra key.
Yeah, with 2 small keys, you should be good.
Yeah, I'm not sure that makes a lot of sense. It does. It can help if you happen to have extra keys later on. You can skip,
right?
You know. And there's a big key in the very next chest that Krithel did not open. So we will possibly see McMonkey. If they play a safe GT, they will likely save a little bit of... And that Krithel is onto the tower climb proper as McMonkey finds here the big key for Mire and thus can skid out. I think currently the lamp can be in an unchecked Mire chest, catfish, and that's about all I can think of at the moment.
Did we get both items in Ice Palace before?
I don't recall.
Desert Palace could.
Desert
Palace
yeah,
could.
It
also...
could indeed have mirror or have lamp.
Filling up on magic, presumably to use Fire Rod to make this.
Yeah,
gauntlet.
there's also Smith Chain. We haven't seen Smith Chain, which is something that you like to avoid if you don't really have to do it. When with Mitts being so late, it was a very reasonable thing to skip, since it's all locked behind Mitts. Mitts was kind of the thing that our runners were really looking for Go. I see book and bombo. So if our trackers are indeed correct, we saw Krithel have a faster ice palace. They didn't take the time to check the book that contained. Oh yeah, that was our tracker who said that in chat. So well done. Not that I had any doubts in your ability. Yeah, so we saw McMonkey finding the book and Krithel not. So with McMonkey finding the book in Ice Palace, that also means that the medallions the medallion tablets could also contain lamp.
But McMonkey did not have a whole lot to worry about. Got through that Mire dark room pretty handily, and
which raises the question as to why they waited for so long instead of diving down into Mire right away. We assumed they had been searching for lamp, but
I don't think it did take a small amount of time. We'll have to ask about the play to Turtle Rock first out of the 3 remaining dungeons. I would have personally expected to see Ice Palace first. Just basically hoping against hope that Lamp wasn't in Turtle Rock.
We just saw a nice clear of those first 3 Wizrobes by Krithel in that first room. We'll see if he gets the 1 cycle here. Ooh, just missed.
Ooh, a little to the right, but
that first one is much easier than the second one.
Yeah.
First one is a little tricky until you figure out, exactly where the invisible doors are, and you realize you can just put it there, and it's pretty free after you figure that one out. But that second one, surprisingly, it seems like, since everything is consistent, it seems like it wouldn't be super difficult, but the spike adds that little bit of extra movement to keep track of, since it can block the shot. So there's a timing aspect to it too, beyond just...
Yeah, Leoria of Light in chat pointing out that one of the great benefits of this tournament, that the runners do have a more experienced mentor with them. Qirn may well have helped McMonkey through that dark room.
Yeah, that is what I would expect at this. There would have really been no real reason to avoid going into Mire right there, other than hesitation at doing that dark room, because that dark room does become much easier if you have the lamp.
Yes. The lamp cannot be on pedestal because not all of pod was...
Yeah, there's the dark... Was the dark maze required to full clear the dungeon? Oh, but the lamp is required for the basement.
Yeah, yes. That first dark room, the first 2 dark rooms do not have torches. Nor does the last one, technically.
We see Krithel in the last real room of the tower. And for the longest time, I would always follow the carpet in that room, leading to the second boss fight with Aghanim here. Until I realized, wait a minute, you don't have to walk on the carpet. That's what they're made for, but you don't have to do it. You can just walk. Ooh, and here we see McMonkey diving into Hope Room, checking these chests. He found a key, so he might commit full.
No.
And that's what he's... McMonkey committing to right side here. Please, run. Ah, you're breaking my heart. I mean, obviously I wouldn't wish that, he finds it, considering he knew it wasn't in there. But I would have liked to see the play just in case it pays off, because when it pays off, I'm in GT, because you can almost be guaranteed that your opponent is going to. That's a good several minute time save. It's pretty much the best time save you can get in all.
133. Krithel is falling into the Ganon. Ganon asking a very good question about midnight snacks and lights in refrigerators.
It would be funny if he said that only in seeds where lamp was in.
That's
I don't think he said that in the race where I had to find lamp in. It's a relatively okay pattern. He was a little far away from the bottom of the screen for the double hits with the sword in that first position he was in, but we're already on to phase.
And well, McMonkey will check the same chests before finding the big key. Doing a Hope Room right first is technically a little faster way to get there. So
Yeah, he got a slight time save here.
Though that
nice double
may
hit
have,
with silvers on.
And one more should do it.
And there we are, right before the lamp runs out. I suppose it doesn't matter since he had been frozen, but your time. And that's a very nice hour.
And with all that, McMonkey is only a GT climb behind. Given that at points he was 2 or 3 dungeons behind, that's not nothing. Made skips where they counted. Made up a little.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned this before, but no real execution errors on either side here. Just very clean, actual. Just a slight. I mean, a fairly sizable, but I mean, still just a little bit of luck on side. That early dip into Skull Woods, that early clear of Skull Woods, really sort of laid out the rest.
And we are joined by the winning team, I suppose, Runner and Mentor, Krithel and Nobly the.
Hello, thank you.
So tell us some of your thoughts.
Oh, well, nobody had me running around doing a lot of things I wasn't expecting in that seed. So, you know, the early death to Ice Rod Cave was obviously a bad start. But everything else, routing-wise, from then on, I think just fell in our favour, didn't they, Nobly?
Yeah.
Yeah, luckily we found the flippers and strolled away from the Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really was a major deciding factor here. As you can see, you were the winners, and that was something that McMonkey and Qirn did not do. So they didn't find the flippers nearly as quickly. And while with fake flippers you can do a lot of those checks, it didn't make the routing.
Right. McMonkey had to pass up Swamp Palace and that bow on the first trip to Southern Dark World, which you guys did not have to do.
Yeah, I mean, from the point of view where we were starting, it was okay. We have Moonpearl, we have Mirror. We can do like the route I was planning for Krithel here was to do South Shore into Icewood Cave with Water Walk Store, and do the Waterfall plus Sora Ledge plus Hobo, and then go into CAC and possibly have Darkwood access, because we knew 2 pens in the world meanly. We have a Skullwoods and Thieves Down Clearable when we get there. So,
And now we were theorizing here that the reason that you guys didn't go straight to Kakariko, which is usually an odd choice, was influenced by the fact that Hyrule Castle had a lot of useful things in there. Is that?
absolute treasure trove that was.
Oh yeah, that was that a Go mode Hyrule Castle almost? I mean,
So, yeah, I know Nobly doesn't like to go Kakariko early, but with all the items there, it I think really helped the routing.
It does make a lot of sense. I was mentioning that there's a lot of checks in Kakariko, but that has a lot less value when you already had, gloves, you already had boots, you already had what else did you already have? Hammer? No, that was.
Oh, we
Moon
had
Pearl?
Mirror, Fire Rod,
Mirror,
Moon Pearl, boots, and
as soon as you got that hammer, you could have gotten those mitts. Those mitts were available.
That could have been routed Thieves Town into Skull Woods, cross the top, get mitts, then just.
it was the plan.
Which was the plan, yeah, the original plan.
The original plan was to do
Yeah, I suppose finding flippers there.
Thieves Town, but flippers instantly turned out to go straight to Swamp.
Sorry, we are about to see McMonkey finish off Aga 2, and we should make sure to give them our full attention. So, finishing up the Aga 2 fight and dropping into Ganon.
I suppose we can assume the fact that we kind of missed their GT climb would indicate that it was fairly clean, as most of the play today. Very clean.
Very briefly, how confident were you going into Thieves Town on 5 hearts? You did not have that bottle from.
Medium confidence. Thieves Town was much more preferable over Skullwoods. I can do 5 heart blind relatively okay. If I died there, it would have been a real problem.
I would agree that I would consider blind the more doable.
So considering I like to use my strategy of torturing my mentee, so he's practicing 3 hearts, green mail, hammer blind, so I was not worried.
Now the training weights are off when he's actually.
Oh yeah.
You
So
get that for free now.
Ooh, McMonkey has to be careful here. Down to 2.5 hearts.
Does he have anything?
Only has a couple more hits on the second phase at most, though.
Does he have anything in his bottles? That's a. He does have a second. Don't remember if it contained anything when he picked it up, though.
I'm oddly aware of where the lamp could be this scene.
Yeah, we were talking about that too. It could be catfish. It could be on the tablets, as you can see. McMonkey
book in Ice Palace. One of those bottles has a B. I assume there's not a potion in the other one, or McMonkey would have probably chosen to take it with silvers and 1 heart left.
And Ganon's invisible, no torch glitch. That can be dangerous if the lights go completely out and you don't know exactly where Ganon's going to be. It's really easy to take a hit or, get knocked off the edge.
Walks into the fire.
He did have...
fairy in the other bottle.
Again, something with... But again, yeah, if those torches go out, and you chance going to that bottom to light them both, it's possible for Ganon to sort of sneak up on you and sort of boop.
Barring those finishes, or barring those fairy revives, Monkey having a very clean.
Get your GGs in chat. And time. Oh, you didn't stop his timer. It's still. I would say that's a 42, 142, 37.
Don't have the page pulled up to confirm, but
it's a 142.36.
One death we see on Krithel's side, and McMonkey gonna get us caught up with his stats shortly.
Yeah, now that time has been called, it is perfectly legal to use the emulator-only strategy of speeding up the end credits.
To be fair,
all of these wonderful people.
The only thing I don't like is the menu time. We have to work on that.
Yeah, let's not talk about the menus this
And
seed.
I missed all of that.
Yeah, looking at these two times, considering the collection rate too, it was 153, I believe, for McMonkey and 137. It's a very respectable race. Also, I believe we are joined by.
That's right, just me. Qirn had to jet. He had another engagement to get to, but GG Krithel.
GG, McMonkey.
What did you think about the backup of those fairies in that run?
Certainly on the Ganon fight, I knew I had it in my back pocket. Was relying on it being a little bit more aggressive until I had to use the fairy.
Yeah, we both weren't sure it was in there, and so when we saw you get clipped by the end of that fire bat tail, we were.
Yeah, Qirn had a mini heart attack when Ganon almost spawned on top of me because he didn't remember either.
So another question. So what were both of you feeling after that incredible escape sequence with so many items directly out of there? Since it usually is very nice to see that, but you know that the other runner has found the exact same things as.
Yeah, so the talk immediately went to if we find the hammer in the village, what are we going to do next? And we discussed going to Village of Outcasts and starting that as the route, which is not something I would have thought of on my own to route in Village of Outcasts with Kakariko. But it worked out that we had everything to do it, so that's the way we went.
Yeah.
There was some early route divergence between you two. Krithel went immediately to the South Shore after Hyrule Castle and put off the village for a little bit. Eventually ended up doing Skull Woods right after Thieves Town, after making the same play directly into the Dark World after finding that hammer. And so they got directed away from that northern loop with the boots checks and Graveyard Ledge to go into the southern loop and do Swamp Palace there. And it was kind of funny. Both of you ended up having to double dip that southern area. Krithel because he did it first before going to the Dark World, and McMonkey because he didn't go into Skull Woods and get those flippers the first time.
Yeah, it was just enough low percent for me to feel uncomfortable with the moth fight at that time with just a couple of hearts and a fighter sword.
Yeah,
we talked about it,
I
and
don't blame you.
the routing probably would have led me over to King's Tomb a lot earlier, so I would have hit go mode a lot sooner had I been willing to give it a try, but we just bailed on that immediately.
Interesting. Both of you ended up hitting King's Tomb for mitts at similar points in your routing, so neither of you really got that much ahead of you.
Yeah, you were down to very similar checks when it was King's Tomb.
Yeah, I was curious what ended up being the go mode for Krithel.
Mine
was
was mitts.
We were worried for a minute because Krithel went up Death Mountain and did not dip Hera at first. So we were concerned that Krithel would miss that ice rod and would more than likely check Turtle Rock all the way to Laser Bridge before finding it. But very quickly after, Krithel did go back to Hera. Was that mentor in your ear telling you, you don't want to skip that, actually. It's easy to check.
So the plan was always to go to Hera then when we pulled the mushroom. My mentor was in my ear telling me to go to flute over there at that point, where I could also wrap in Ice Rod Cave in case, my death there meant there was something lurking that was going to make me sad.
Yeah, that's not something you want to have in the back of your mind.
Yeah. So doing those, the plan was always just go straight back to Hera. If we hadn't found the mushroom in Paradox, it would have been Spike Cave and then up to Hera.
So one other question we had, we saw McMonkey doing quite a few checks before dipping into those last 3 dungeons. And we were speculating that had something to do with Lamp. Is that
Oh no, Lamp wasn't part of the conversation. We really
Interesting.
were just discussing the most efficient routing to go through, not having the MITs. We were just trying to plot out the most efficient route to pick up a bunch of those checks.
What I think what Ezmar is referring to is after you found the mitts, your first play was actually you checked the mire area and left, then went up and did Turtle Rock before mire or ice and finally mire.
That was more about wanting to be sure we had the right medallions. We talked about that. I was on the fence about whether to go right into Mire and do Ice Palace before going up, and just hoping we have the Turtle Rock medallion. But the risk there is, with the Mire that we had, catching the big key so early, we would have been it would have been a tough decision whether to abandon items to try to keep that time save or risk it and full clear.
Yeah, Krithel opted to go straight into Mire before Mire Shed even, and had that tempered sword for the last two bosses, which I think made a lot of difference. It was unfortunate where the tempered was, but
certainly bailed me out in a really dodgy cold stare. So yeah, we were just going for the kind of gamble of assuming go mode, and then if it wasn't there, there's still the whole of Dark East Death Mountain to do. So hopefully we can get bailed out with Bombos there. And then obviously when it was in Ice Palace, we knew we were fine at that point.
Yeah, honestly, I feel that strategy is it often plays out. Doing stuff you have to do anyway, and then go to Plan B if it doesn't magically work out, because then you more often get optimal routings that way.
It would have been a totally different story if we picked up those mitts earlier, though.
yeah.
Because we had like mitts and we're missing bombos only. I was like, it's fine to leave one item behind in Mire, because if it is bombos, we have East Death Mountain. If it's not there, we can. That's also why we check the checkerboard, because that's an annoying check if you're coming back.
Right.
Because you have to flute to like Ice Palace anyway, so doing a mirror transition and just opening the rock and go inside and check it's 2 seconds compared to flying back, doing 3 more mirror portals and losing time.
Yeah, it's always a big gamble when you have a seed where both Mire and Turtle Rock are required and you get mitts late, because then there are a lot more unknowns before go mode. So there could always be that medallion lurking.
Yeah, so we were like, okay, just beeline. Icebreaker is really helping out go moding ice and picking up items along the way anyway. So it's basically easy to pick up the items.
Yeah, luckily you found Bombos in Ice Palace in I think it's a hookshot chest.
Yeah, the spike chest.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you knew you were in go mode before heading up the mountain anyway, and it all worked out. Yeah, this was a great run to watch. Both runners did a great job. I think the only lasting death was Krithel's early one by Ice Rod Cave, which was not the worst one.
Last frame bomb damage.
Yeah.
That came out of nowhere. I was like, the crab was nowhere near him.
Yeah. I gave him a speech about that one, so next time he will pull out his sword and have a spin speed instead, ready to beat up the crabs, so he can stay safe and not panic.
Not walk into my own bombs. Yeah, that'll be fine.
He's like,
spooky area, because you want to check it early, but there's like 7 over there.
Yeah, it's like 1 against 5. And they have similar random pattern as the mini Moldorms. They're equal trolley.
They're basically reverse snakes.
Yeah. The 3 worst enemies of A Link to the Past: ropes, crabs, and Moldorms.
Yeah, those random movements can catch you off guard. But yeah, great run. Very clean, routing and playing by both players and mentors, I thought. It was a pleasure to commentate. Be sure to follow the Go Mode Podcast Discord, follow our runners, follow our crew, our tracker, Tumultalk 12, our restreamer, RickyofKokiri. We've got a couple more. I think we've got one more restream tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern, so in about 1 hour. And maybe a couple tomorrow as well. But if you throw a follow on this channel, you will be sure to see those when they come up. I've been Vortex of Doom with Ezmar, and I think that is all we have. Thanks for watching, and have a great rest of your day, night, evening, whenever it is, where you are, wherever it is, when you are, I can talk. I've been Vortex.
Yeah, it started out good, got a little bit long in the tooth, but yeah, see you all next time.